Hello and welcome to tonight's podcast. Before we get going with that, I would just like to have a quick word about today's sponsor, CABI, the Community Assembly of the British Isles. We are constantly seeking solutions, and it is evident that complete unity among the people is essential for us to reclaim our power. I believe the Community Assembly of the British Isles represents the best option available. CABI's goal is to transform every community into a powerful entity, creating a vast network of strong communities. It is the people who should determine how we live our lives, and it is the people who can empower themselves to make this a reality. The Community Assembly of the British Isles is a great facilitator in helping to bring this vision to fruition. Since its inception pre-2020, CABI has been steadfast in its mission, actively facilitating change across the British Isles. Click in the video description link below to find out so much more, and sign up free today. Let's take back the power. Now please do enjoy the podcast.
Are you concerned about all this corruption being misgendered as conspiracies? Well, don't you worry. Sit back, relax, and join in the conversation as we talk with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Chris Brooks, for another LSB Film podcast. Today I have the wonderful Graham Moore, who has done more for England than probably most people. Part of the English Constitution Society. Did you set it up? Was it you or?
Well, so first of all, I'm just a person, part of a team, right? There's a big team of us, and we all work together free of charge in the background, and all put lots of effort in, including moderators. And you know what that's like on your channel. I go live every night. So there's a team of us. But yeah, we've set up the English Constitution Society. We also set up another thing, which was the English Constitution Party, which I was explaining to you before. It's not like any other political party. And the reason for that is because our manifesto is the English Constitution, and all the constitutional laws are set out as part of our manifesto, which is the job of a member of parliament, to protect your rights. It's not the job of a member of parliament to remove your rights. In fact, they're going against their oath and the reason why they're elected. So the nearest thing to a full constitutional member of parliament would be one of us, because we're all trained in the constitution and therefore know exactly what you can pass as a law and what you can't.
No, that makes sense. No, that does make sense. Well, we need more of that in this horrible, tyrannical world that we find ourselves in. So I watched you on a podcast the other day, and you were talking about trusts. Now, I've had people talk to me about trusts, and I don't really know. Well, I know what they are, but I don't really know how to set one up or things like that. So can you just talk to me about trusts and the benefits and how to go about it? I know that's quite a broad.
Well, so one of the things I was going to say to you, let me jump up for 2 seconds.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to turn the heating off, so that works well. Go on.
Go on.
Yep.
Right. So first of all, trust law is different to common law, right? It actually comes under another set of law, which technically is equity law. It comes under chancery law, not the common law, right? So just to make sure you all know, right? So when I start talking about trust, or I talk about the common law, or I talk about the constitution, or I talk about any of them things, I can show you books here, and old books that are originals that are hundreds of years old. That's why people go to me, wow, what you mean you actually read law? And I've said I've read law for 30 years, right? It interests me. I'm quite a sad person, right? But the law, we are governed by consent. So I'm looking for the reasoning. So just to show you this book. So if there's anyone out there interested in the law, hopefully you can see that coming up on the screen.
Lewin on Trusts.
Right.
Yeah.
So Lewin on Trusts, and Trust, Wills and Probate Library. So like I said, this is a different. So when people start talking about, just to make sure I'm going to get this to any of your audience that have heard all this nonsense about maritime law, right? Maritime law is very important, right? because a large part of this planet is covered by the sea. So the law of the sea is very important, and it has to be managed by someone, and therefore there is a maritime law. They mainly deal with salvage, right? And if there's two ships that hit each other, right, and the cargo's gone or something else is gone, it comes under maritime law. If it's happened at sea, someone needs to be able to resolve it. So it does exist. We've also got, if you want to call it the law of the land, we are governed by the common law jurisdiction, not Roman law, right? So that means that basically it's judge-made law, but it incorporates customs, ancient rights, ancient usage, the oath system, which really is what binds our society together. Statute is part of that, and it has been since the first Statute of Westminster, 1275. And there's wording in law, for example, time immemorial, which means it can be a custom. It don't have to be written. But if you've done it for centuries or 1,000 years, then it is the law of the land, right? And a judge will look at it. But this is a different set of laws, right? So when
sorry, just quickly, because you're talking about acts and statutes, I was told, or I heard the other day, that when it comes to acts and statutes in this country, they are actually really good. It's just that they're abused by the powers that be. Is that?
Well, so the easiest way to explain this to you is we have a constitution. It is by and large a written constitution, right? And then and anyone who says to you we haven't got a constitution, the British haven't got a constitution, the English have, and the Scots have, right? But the major point of this, and this is what I'm expressing to people, we do not live in an unregulated, do as you like democracy. So some people refer to America and even this country as a constitutional democracy. That is not what we have. That is not our governance. Our governance, both in this country, which is a constitutional monarchy, and America, which is a constitutional republic. A fraction of that is democracy, but the democracy is limited by the Constitution. So when you have people that abuse our system of law, which is what they're doing at the moment, and they have done for centuries, and that is the separation of powers, right, which is crucial to our law and our legal system and crucial to the American legal system, right? Some people say it doesn't exist in this country. Technically, at the moment, it doesn't because it's been abused, but it was there. We can bring it back, and they've imposed upon us another set of laws, which is basically administrative law. And if you want to know what that is, right, there's another set of laws here, which is that, right?
The Civil Court Practice of 2019.
Right.
It's a thick old book.
Well, there's lots of them, right? Now, all of that are CPR rules. Is basically what they've done is they have put into the system a lower, at the moment, it's the higher order, and it shouldn't be, right? Because you've got a judicial review court. And that judicial review court used to be something to do with the King's Bench, etc. But now they're looking at things that should never exist in this country. They have arbitrarily imposed upon us administrative law, which is Roman law, right? They should never have done it. It should never been allowed, and they have done it. And part of that, so what they do is they use that system to stop you getting to the constitutional law and the common law of the country. And then if I was to show you some of these books, the reason I'm showing you these, and there's a load more down there, there's another one, right? You should be able to see that. But
the first, what's that? The first mutt.
Hang on a minute. Let me read it from it's easier. It's not focused properly. The first part of the Institutes of the Laws of England by Coke, right? Sir Edward Coke, who was one of our great leaders. So what I'm trying to say to you is all of the information of our common law going back centuries is in these books, but also coming forward, that they're all there. Lord Denning, Sir John Laws was another one of our great common law, and he actually refers to the common law constitution And he actually said that it is the common law constitution that is the law of the land, and that it is the common law constitution that is sovereign, right?
Right. Okay.
Not any individual part. It's the way that we are structured that is sovereign. So getting back to understanding this type of stuff. So the reason I've showed you these books is not to prove to you that I can read and write and read law. It's to show you that I'm not the type of person, and I've studied this for 30 years, right? The High Court regard me for more than 10,000 hours of study. They would regard me as an expert on the Constitution. I know more about the Constitution than most judges do, right? Because I read it as standard. It is my speciality. I'm also a paralegal, registered paralegal. I only deal with constitutional issues, really, right? Or something else called universal jurisdiction, which is another subject entirely. But if you want me to give you a brief description, because I'll give you an example, the English Bill of Rights, in effect, the English Bill of Rights is a trust document, all right? And the reason for that is because it's got the three main sets of things that you need for a trust. So what I'm going to do is take you to this, which is 1 and then 001, and it should give you a definition of a trust. So before you start wanting to learn what a trust is, you need to know what the proper definition of a trust is. And it's really basic. By the way, you don't even need paperwork, really and truthfully. You just need the people to
witness it.
To witness it, right? It's the same. A lot of people don't realise you can have a verbal contract with someone, right? You don't need anything.
I mean, I had heard that you don't need to register a trust because the whole process of registering it is giving it away, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, definition. There's a little trust at a shop, right? Charles Dickens, definitions and descriptions, 1001. I think I'm on this one. The definition of and description of the trust. So don't forget, this is coming from the main authority on trusts. And if you go and ask anyone in the legal profession about this book, and I'll read it out again, Living on Trusts, 19th edition, this one is slightly older, Trust, Wills and Probate, right? And every judge will turn to this, and it's part of the Chancery Court, and that's where they have all the probate stuff, that's where the trust stuff is. And it's a tribunal hearing. So it's in front of a judge, never in front of a jury, right? But what they say is the typical case of a trust is one in which the legal owner of a trust is constrained by a court of equity. So it's an equity court, right? So to deal with it as to give effect to the equitable rights of another. But there is no really satisfactory definition. Various definitions have been proposed, but they contain large, though incomplete, elements of mere description. The first is from the International Convention. For the purpose of this convention, the term trust refers to the legal relationship created inter viso or on death by a person, the settlor, when assets have been placed under the control of a trustee for the benefit of a beneficiary for a specified trust characteristic, right? So what it does, it then sets out that you need certain things, right? So for it to be a trust, or for you to create a trust, and yeah, there are certain things you can do in a trust that you can't get away with anything else, right? The only thing, if you've got a trust, you can have, you can also set up a trust where you put property in it, and you can have the trustees who are actually in charge of it can be bearer trustees. So no one knows who owns it. It's whoever produces the bit of paper, right?
All right.
So they can never take your property. They can't take your car. They can't take anything if it's under a trust. But there are certain things you still have to understand and know, right? And I'm not an expert in this. All I'm saying is people have asked me about trust before. I've said it's equity law. It's not the common law. It's not really something I'll get involved with. But it is interesting when you understand it. So there needs to be a number of things. The three main things, there must be beneficiaries to the trust. If there's no beneficiary, it can't be a trust, right? There must be trustees, and there must be a transferable benefit, right? So for us, the beneficiaries or the beneficiaries of the Bill of Rights are the future generations, right? The trustees technically are the people that are elected to Crown, so that the separation of powers were the trustees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the benefit is the rights that have been afforded to you by the English Bill of Rights, right? So in effect, what happens is you can argue in the Chancery Court that the English Bill of Rights is a trust document, that the trustees are the separation of powers,
Mm-hmm.
that the beneficiaries are us and our future generations, and that the benefit being offered are what's known in law as incorporeal rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So an incorporeal right is something that is your right. It can never be taken off you, right? It's another way of saying inalienable right, right? So that's, in a nutshell, that's what a trust is.
Okay.
But if you really, really want to go into trust law, I'm not an expert in that. It's a whole set of law that is, I mean, this is just one book, but it is regarded as the it's like the Bible of trusts.
Mm.
And every precedent or ruling that has been set and all the case law is in this book.
I think I might have to try and put a link to that book so people can maybe buy one, because that looks like that could be of some benefit for sure. I mean, is there anything that you would give anyone advice on who has, because I'm sure people have made or attempted to do trusts, but they haven't fully grasped the, well, like what you've just said, that's new to me. That's not, I haven't heard that before. So is there anything that you could advise people on doing to do it properly?
Well,
I suppose just,
there's two things. You either go to, so the types of lawyers that deal with this, right? It is a different subject. It is a different subject of law. It's a different court. It's an equity court. Again, I heard one group of people on the internet, I won't say who they was, suggesting that equity law is the best law. There is no other law better than equity law. And then they started talking about juries. And I was like, I listened to it for about 5 minutes and said, this is complete rubbish. And they said that the equity courts had juries. Well, the equity courts haven't got juries. And just to make sure everyone's aware of this, we had something once in this country that was so tyrannous, they closed it down and abolished it. And it was called the Star Chamber. The Star Chamber is a form of military absolute court, right? That was operated and run by the king and the King's Council, and removed juries completely. It was tyrannous. It was one of the worst things ever that was in this country. It was abolished. And the whole point of equity law is complete. It's a form of, well, it's arbitrary law. It is once you've set out something in an agreement, it's not. You've got to be very careful what you're doing. It's a different type of law. If you're thinking about a trust, either research yourself and don't be going listening to people. And I know this is a video possibly on YouTube, right? I always say to people, don't be trusting what someone's just coming out with on YouTube, right? They've got to be people that have been there, done it, worn the t-shirt, been sometimes on the wrong end of criminal activity from the state, right? So in other words, the state can act criminally just as much as anyone else, right? But you've got to be looking at the people that have held someone's hand in court. And I don't mean literally, unless she's a nice looking lady, right?
just the support.
Yeah, so you can act as a Mackenzie friend, you can advise the person. But if those people are writing out, for example, case stated, a lot of people don't know that a magistrate's court is not a court of record, but you can make it a court of record, and you can do that by following a process, which is the CPR rules, which is the administrative law. If you followed the process and you put in what's known as a case stated, you can put that into a magistrate's court, and it's got to be within a certain time frame, and that's your case stated. And then you cause a legal problem because it's actually on record, right? There's no ifs, buts, or anything else. It's on record, right? Once it's on record, you'll be taking it to a higher court if the magistrates, who, by the way, people say magistrates and they haven't got juries and all that. Well, I don't agree with magistrates, but the magistrate or three magistrates also take an oath, and if they betray that oath, you can get justice against them, right? So, but again, I just want to make sure people understand this. I'm not a solicitor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a barrister, right? When I advise people, I advise them on the real law of the land, and everything that I produce for them, it comes from precedent, comes from constitutional law, the common law, and show them and then give them the evidence so a judge can read it. I write cases and case statements not for the magistrate, but I write them as if I am writing out the law to the Supreme Court, which shouldn't exist, by the way, because it's a breach of our constitution. But I'm just making sure everyone's aware. When I write things out, it's so if it went to the law lords and they read it, they would say all of this is good law. I've had a judge say that to me. This is good law. So again. There's different people. You get groups of people. I'm not going to sort of state their names or what they are. Some of them people, there's terms I can use, right? So free men of the land or straw men or any of them, right? I've met so many people. I don't listen to them, but I often get people that become interested because they knew there was a problem, went through that process, realised it was all bureaucratic stimuli, and you can use the initials, right? And then they turn around and say, then I started reading the Constitution, then I started reading law, right? Then I realised that what they was talking about was complete rubbish, right? And then, but the point is, it still got them interesting, even if it was by intrigue, they become interested. Now, there was a time in England where it was noted that every Englishman is a common lawyer. Why is that? Because we used to teach each other what our rights were, right? And by the way, the Acts of Union actually tells you must communicate these rights to the people, right? So when you start understanding the law, you think, so why haven't they done that? Why did they remove it from the curriculum? Why did they remove it from the bar exams? They've already been told by law they got to communicate it. Why are they not communicating it to us? Because the easiest way to remove your rights is to take it from your education. You don't know it's there.
Absolutely, yeah. No, 100%. So is that why a lot of people fail with like the council tax and stuff? Because they go down the straw man and that kind of route rather than the constitution?
Well, let me just tell you...
because that's quite a big thing at the moment, isn't it? People withholding council tax and electric bills and all that kind of stuff.
So funny enough, I mean, if this show isn't going out quick enough, this Sunday, I'm at a location where I'm going to be covering some of that as a subject, right? Because people keep asking me, and I'm warning them. I can't say too much, but I can tell you this, right? If you are, I'm telling you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God, right? This is the truth. If you own your own property in this country, meaning England, I only talk about England, I'm not talking about anywhere else.
Now, when you say own it, do you mean with a mortgage or mortgage paid off?
Let me put it this way, it's your gaff.
Right, okay, yeah.
In other words, you're not renting it,
right? Okay.
It's your house, right? Whether it's by a mortgage or not, if you don't pay your council tax, it then means 9 out of 10 times there's some form of equity left in your house, right? Some form of equity will be in your house. If you owe more than £1,001, the local council can make an application to the county court for your house to be sold, for them to get their whatever it is you owe, The judge will just stamp it and say you are liable, whack the thing in. You will have your house not repossessed. They will take it off you and sell it. They don't care what they sell it for. It'll be sold at auction, right? They'll sell it, you're gone. They'll pay the council whatever it is that you owe, and then you'll get what's left after all the costs are taken out, right? That is the risk that you run if you are a home owner. If you are in rented accommodation, housing association, council house, or any other form of rented accommodation where you don't own the property, right, or you're living on a caravan, you've got none of them issues. Then all you're going to do is get bailiffs knocking on the door. You have to remember the rules with a bailiff. They're like vampires, right? And the rule with a vampire is if you have to invite them in, right? So you open the door and you invite the bailiff over your threshold. Once they've come into your property, and this is the bit that people get so wrong about this, once they've been in your gaff, right, and they mark your property, so they go up to your TV and they put the serial number, the TV, they'll put in their book, serial number TV. Once they've completed that as an operation, they can then break into your home and take all your goods, and there is nothing you can do about it by law, right? So the initial thing is to stop the bailiff getting in. If you're on the ground floor or whatever floor you're on, shut all your windows, don't open the door. They can't do anything, right? If they go and get the police, right, the police are not allowed to get involved with civil disputes or money disputes or debt disputes. They're not allowed to do it. It is against the law. You can sue the police. They are there to keep the peace only. If you decide that they're not allowed to insist that you open the door for the bailiff or anyone else, you haven't committed a crime, you can tell them the Foxtrot Oscar. It's your property, tell them to leave. That's it. That is the truth. People are being told certain things about the law. Now, let me make myself absolutely clear here. On Sunday, I will be going through the laws that they enacted in Parliament that gave authority to the local council to charge you a tax. I will go through that and I will explain to people, in my opinion, it is unconstitutional, ultra-vires, and should never have been allowed to happen. In my opinion, if anyone has assented to them laws, and especially a monarch, even by letter patent, right, they have breached their oath, right? They shouldn't be the monarch anymore. Virtually, they have abdicated the role, right? That is my opinion. So what I'm saying to you and saying to your audience, I am not telling you that I believe council tax is lawful. I believe it is unlawful under our constitution. But that Parliament has created a way. They stole the money off the local communities by taking in rates and business rates and bringing it into central fund. This is all about centralisation of power, right? Taxation is the way. There are ways of running this country, non-usury, where this country would thrive, right? It's called treasury money. One form of treasury money that most people have started to hear about now is the Bradbury pound, right?
That's my next podcast.
Right, so you've got the Bradbury pound, you've got the Guernsey pound, you've got the Liverpool Notes Act, and there are various books that tell you the history of this, right? Each time it's been shut down by the Rothschilds, right? That's a fact. It's been right? There's nothing wrong as long as you use it for specific purpose, and the specific purpose must be that whatever the benefit. So I'll give you an example. If you was just to be paying people's wages out of it and they was all sitting there rolling cigarettes and doing nothing, you're going to go down a pan in a big way, right? Whereas if you was to issue treasury notes to build another crossing over the River Thames that benefited the people of Kent and the people of Essex, and it was paid for with no interest by treasury money, and the employment, the materials, everything done, the engineering was all done via treasury money, and that bridge was still being used by the benefit of the people in 200 years' time as a crossing over the River Thames, then that is a legitimate purpose for Treasury money, right? And that means that you have not
So for the greater good.
It's not it is the greater good, but you're passing a benefit on to future generations, not passing a debt onto them.
Right, okay.
So your labour, it's your labour of this time via Treasury money, and they've paid you with Treasury money. You've passed on the benefit of your labour, your brains, your effort to future generations. It's a bit like the old saying, true selflessness, right? True selflessness is the 90-year-old man that plants an apple tree for the future generations to get the benefit of the shade, because he knows he's never going to get the shade himself. So if he's dug the hole and he's grown the tree and he says, that's what I'm giving the future generations, that I'm giving them the benefit of this oak tree in 100 years' time or 200 years' time as the shade for the people and for the generations of them, right? Well, you would never know that, but you would know that if you only used it in that way. So again, it is socialists, communists, and other people that particularly are against that, or the feudal system, whatever way you want to describe it, and basically groups of economists who just don't know their elbow from their backside. That's it. You can fill up a stadium with economists and they still want, but if you put 5 bricklayers and 5 plumbers in a room and said, right, we need to resolve the economy, I'll guarantee we could do it. But when you put these people in there, they can't do it. So there is a specific use for it. It can't be used, Bradbury pound, Guernsey pound, Liverpool Notes Act was another one. And again, people need to understand what the difference is. But again, that's probably a different subject.
Yeah, well, I'm just happy to touch on all kinds of different things. I haven't really got a motive as to what we discuss. Speaking of economics, one bloke I do follow, who I like, and that's Gary's Economics. I don't know if you've heard of him. He used
I probably would have seen it at some stage.
He used to be very successful at a young age as a stockbroker in London.
Right.
And so he understands the system, and so now he explains the system, like how the rich never pay taxes, and how he was saying the best way to sort this out is that when, instead of like inheritance tax, a family gets, I don't know, 100 years to use that money, and after 100 years it gets given back to the state. So no one is constantly being born into richness. To make it more fair. So I do like him. He's really good. He's really good. Was it a reform talk that I saw you on as well?
What one?
A reform. Did you do a speech?
No, I've done a speech. Well, so what's really difficult is doing a speech about the Constitution in 30 minutes, right? Especially when we got so much of a Constitution. Everyone says we haven't got one. So I've done a 30-minute speech and briefly touched on the elements that you're not being taught in school, that you're not being told the truth about, and that was at the Heritage Party. So as the English Constitution Society, I can go to any political event and just talk about the English Constitution, and I can also explain to people the difference between British and English, which is really important for people to understand, because they have to understand that Britain is an island, that the UK Parliament is a British Parliament. It was created in 1706, 1707, and it is a political union that then went on, not straight away, by the way, in 1947 and 1981, to create the British Nationality Act that erased English, Scottish, Welsh, and Irish. And that's why when you go to fill the form out, it says, no, you can only be British, right? And the reason for that is because those two acts combined remove your nationality of English, Scottish, and Irish. And it's the British regime that have done that. Why do they do that? Because if you give someone a label of British and they accept that they are British. They are no longer English, so you ain't got no English constitutional rights anymore. You're no longer Scottish, you've got no Scottish constitutional rights anymore. You're no longer Irish, you've got no Irish constitutional rights anymore. And you're no longer Welsh, right? And you're no longer Cornish. You are just British. They put a label on there. Who was the last person to do that? Joseph Stalin, as the commissar of the Soviet Union. So if you was living, let's say you're Polish, and you go and live in Russia during the Soviet Union, right? Do you, as a Pole, give a flying whatever about Russian law or Russian culture or Russian anything? And the answer is no, right? And if you if you went there as a Pole and lived in Russia under the Soviet Union, you are given the label of a Soviet. You wasn't allowed to call yourself Polish. You weren't allowed to call yourself Russian, right? And what happens is it was Stalin that created that. And who did that in this country? And everyone's going to be shock horror. Who do you think it was?
Oh, I'm going to make myself... Oh, go on.
Go on. Who do you think it was?
Margaret Thatcher?
Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher did that. Right, so everyone should understand, all them conservatives are, oh, we love Maggie Thatcher, right? She done exactly the same thing as Joseph Stalin, right? And that is, they put a label on there, and the label's there for a reason, and the unions, don't matter whether it's the North American Trade Agreement, whether it's the European Union, which is the same thing and started off very similar to the North American Trade Agreement, they know exactly what they're doing. This is about expanding the Roman Empire to a global system of governance, and that's why certain countries in the world are under attack.
No, yeah, absolutely. All the Western countries, it would appear.
Well, so again, people need to understand how it is they do things, and what it is that they do. So I'm not having a pop about, X, Y, Z. I don't have a go at the Scots. I love the Scots. In fact, I'm really quite angry about what the British did to Alex Salmond. Love him or hate him. They treated him as nothing when he died out in Northern Macedonia. And there was something else going on with there, which I'm not going to go into on this show. You probably get banned. But the main point is, right, they treated him, yet the Northern Macedonians almost give him a state elevation onto the plane to get him out, playing the pipes, and they really looked after him. And what did they wouldn't even send an RAF plane to pick him up. He was the First Minister of Scotland. I didn't agree. I've debated him on a number of occasions, right? And I quite liked him. So I haven't got an issue with the Scots. I haven't got an issue with the Welsh. I haven't got an issue with any other nationality. It's about I class the people of England as my people, right? And that's what people have really got to understand. And you've got a constitution that protects you. And what you need is constitutionalists who understand the constitution. They should do an exam before they're allowed to go in there, and then they should have a test to make sure they're not one of what's known as the dark triad personalities or dark personalities, which means they're not a psychopath, that they're not a Machiavellian,
easily corrupted.
But they're not. So again, people talk about good and evil. I describe the dark triad as fallen angels. Their minds are corrupted, including narcissists in that, and technically sadists. But they're only 10 to 15% of the population. If you turn the model round, we, the people, should be at the top, and you stop them people getting positions of power. You need to do some form of test to make sure that they're not of that personality type. And then we would all live in peace with each other. I mean, I'm not suggesting we never have a problem.
Well, see, that kind of leads me on to my next point, really, and that is, like we said, we want to hear solutions, don't we? People need solutions, and you're all about solutions. So how do we start to take back control on a mass scale? Is it simply, would you say, just education?
Now that's a question and a half, I've got to tell you. So again, this coming Sunday, I'll be talking through those solutions. So the first thing is the solution is not social media, not groups on social media. It's about people getting together. There are a number. So first of all, the Constitution is the solution, right? And under that banner, what you need is what we describe as a constitutional militia. What do we encourage? We educate people on their constitutional rights, their common law rights, their inalienable rights that no parliament, no man can take off you, right? We're Englishmen and English women protecting the rights for our future generations. And what we do is then go around the country telling people. So what is part of that? Passive resistance. The more you get out on the streets, there is something called, if you create any law that is repugnant against the Constitution and is repugnant to the people, it is void in law. We need to get out on the streets. What you don't want is violence, right? So what we're projecting here is Gandhi, right? Gandhi beat the British through passive resistance, not with violence. The British, you're fighting them on home ground, right? Because they've taken control of this nation and other nations in these islands, and they are a separate group of people. They are not English, Scottish, Welsh or Irish. They're a separate group of people. You call it the regime, you can call it the establishment, you can call it the ruling elites, you can call it what you want. If you want to fight them, you need to do it with a constitutional militia where you know and teach the proper rights to the people, not all this free man of the land BS, right? And what you do is you make sure that you organise, you take back the counties and the shires of England. You then, quite simple, and by the way, London is a region of the European Union. They're regionalising England to destroy England completely. They've already regionalised Scotland. They just don't know it. They haven't been told and they don't know. I've said it 1,000 times. You already regionalised. They've already taken away your police constabularies. You're a police state. You're a region of the European Union. And everyone says, I've got a Scottish Parliament. You haven't got a Scottish Parliament. It's not a sovereign Parliament. It is a devolved Parliament, and it is nothing more than an assembly, the same as what Wales has got, right? So I just want to make sure everyone understands. If you want to know what the solution is Constitution, a constitutional educational militia. So we're going out there teaching people what their real rights are, how to do things, what it is you need to do, but you need to come out on the streets. You need to be organised. You need, once you've taken, so how do you take back a county? You go back to distributed governance and the way that we used to operate. The objective is to void the Acts of Union. Once you void the Acts of Union, every law made under the authority of that political union is null and void with it. Void and repeal are two separate things in law. If you make it a nullity, that means nothing that Parliament created in law after that point. So you go back, your reset position is the English common law and the English Constitution, the Bill of Rights and everything that was put in place for us, including the old charters, including the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights and everything. That's what it protected. And people don't realise that's actually what they've taken away from you. And people need to wake up to the fact that you have been lied to. Everything you've been told is a lie. People have researched this for years, including myself. We can tell you exactly how to reverse the whole situation, take the country back. And then what you need to do is put some protection models in place. You don't need to rewrite a constitution. Our constitution is very good, right? You can put additional rights in. So we've written a full English digital Bill of Rights, for example, right? And it's on our website. You can go and have a look at it. People have read that and gone, wow. And I said, so that's not rewriting the English Constitution. It's because since 1688 and the progression of time, we've now got digital, we live in, and again, D5. The UK was one of the founding people. People don't realise this, right? There's something called D5, which is Digital Nations 5. The inaugural conference was in 2013 or 2014 in London. Who were the 5 nations? Well, I'll tell you who 3 of them were. Right, there's another 2, and I keep forgetting who they are. Israel was one of them nations. Estonia is one of them nations. United Kingdom, and it was held in the United Kingdom. What is it all to do with? It's to do with digitising the country, digitising the law, digitising every part of your life, right? And here's the kicker. It also encourages AI to take complete control of every aspect of your life. And people don't realize it was initiated in the United Kingdom in London, right? So all of that is factual. Go and do a search if you want. It's still up there. Just put Digital Nations 5 and then go back and have a look at it. And you can read all through it on Google. You can go to the actual government because they tell you what they're doing. They just don't. They don't
advertise it.
They don't advertise it.
But they put it up for you to find
Yeah.
if you sneaky bastards, aren't they? They really are.
They are completely, and the way that they unlawfully repealed some of the English Bill of Rights, and it's a Convention Parliament bill, they weren't allowed to do that, right? And again, they buried it in legislation so no one knew. That's unlawful. I've been telling people, I've been showing members of Parliament. I showed Andrew Bridgeton. He did nothing with it, right? I'm not having a go at him. I'm just telling you, he did nothing with it. He was in a position where he could have read out what the problem was, and he didn't. And he didn't do it. So you need constitutionalists. We still need a Parliament, but you need it needs to be an English Parliament. The way England used, so this is the solution. The way England operated. So first of all, you need a constitutional militia. We need to create these things. We go around the country, we educate people, we get other people. We're now creating a course on the Constitution of England, what your rights are, what the legislation is, what it is that shows you what your rights are. You educate people, but we must come out on the streets and say we've had enough. That's it, right? We want this regime and this tyranny to end. Full stop, right? So what you do then is you keep pushing forward. What will happen if you void when we void the Acts of Union? And by the way, if there's anyone out there that turns around to me and says, I'm a monarchist, the monarchy ain't been with you for a long time, at least 200 years, right? We need to go back to the original Anglo-Saxon where we elect our king, right? If you want to call him a king, call him a king. If you want to call him a queen, call him a queen, right? But the system of England was exported to America. It became the greatest nation on earth, not because of the size of America, because it's not the greatest size in the world. Not because of the greatest populace in the world in terms of numbers, because it isn't. China is, right? It became the greatest nation on the earth because of the common law English system and the governance system that it incorporated into its system and its structure. The independent United States of America is what we're talking about. And that's what they should be. And in 1860, and then slightly further, a few years after that, they brought in Washington, D.C. as a full federal central government system, mirroring the British system, right? Because they know that it's the union system, and that's what the Confederacy was fighting against. They keep saying it was slavery, it's slavery, it's slavery. I could go through the history of all that. Let me tell you something now. It was about control. And what you're now seeing is the culmination of the Roman Empire system and the communist system being imposed upon the world. And people are fighting back against it. And the one thing I'll say to everyone, once you void the Acts of Union, England goes back to an English Parliament. Scotland goes back to a Scottish Parliament and is a sovereign nation again, right? The most important thing then after that is you can take a decision whether you want to be a republic or a constitutional republic or a constitutional monarchy. And then what you do is the shires and counties go back to being independent again, which is what they used to be, right? And people don't realise England was a confederacy, right? Because those independent counties, that's why you have a county council. That's why you had a district council, right? That's why you have, for example, a parish council, because all of the levels of that authority went to the people, not to central government. And the centralisation and the unionisation of any nations. And so a union brings in the nations. It then smothers the nations. Foreigners come in, right, which they're not allowed into the actual nations, but they come into the union. They control the union. They control the nations. They destroy and consume the nation state, which is what's going on now. And they particularly want to slaughter England, right, because of the common law. And then what they do is, for everyone out there, the USSR is the same. Yugoslavia was the same. The European Union is the same. Listen to the word union, 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 union. Listen to it again. It's a communist empire. It come from the Romans. All roads lead to Rome. And once you understand what they're actually doing and how they're achieving it, and they need the dark personalities to deploy that. And that's exactly what they're doing. So again, the only people who can stop it is us. Once you resolve that and you void the acts of union, England, we'd be roaring as a country within 18 months to 2 years, right? And I'm not suggesting it's not going to be difficult at first. Of course, it's going to be difficult at first, but you need real people to understand what's going on, right? And then Lord John Somers in 1888 was one of them people. He knew exactly what was going on. He was one of the draftsmen of the English Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Rights. He knew exactly what they was doing and why they was doing it. All you need to do is learn from history. Nothing under the sun has never happened before. It's always happened before. All they do is remove your knowledge so you repeat the same mistakes. The common law is different to that. It records the mistakes of the past and it records the solutions for the future. And that's the difference with people like me. We're actually telling people that and they don't like it. So you would go back to being a confederacy. So let me just say this to you. I mean, I don't know what county you live or what
I'm in Norfolk.
Right, so Norfolk is a lovely area, right? So just to give you an indication of Norfolk. So let's say there's a serious problem in Essex, right? And the local council in Essex start charging taxes or start doing something or creating some law that no one really likes, right? Everyone up sticks, and Norfolk has created a business environment where there's no tax. They haven't got any income tax in Norfolk, right?
That'd be nice.
And then, they have that in America. There are states in America that haven't got any income tax, right? So all of a sudden, all the people that have got money and the intelligence and the engineering skills and are actually not lazy, that want to create business and value, right? They up sticks from Essex and go, I'm going to Norfolk, right? All of a sudden, all of the people in Norfolk, the house prices start going up. Right, the wealth in Norfolk starts going up. As more and more people come to Norfolk because Norfolk created a business environment with little regulation, right, with no usury, that turned around to people and said, we want you to create for the future of Norfolk, right? And all of a sudden, Norfolk becomes the richest county in the whole of England. That's exactly what our constitution gives you, right? It's the communists that are trying to supplant that because they haven't got the brains they was born with. They are non-intelligent idiots. Most of them have not got engineering degrees, have not got mathematics degrees, have not got the type of degrees that you would need to succeed in. And you ain't got to have a degree to succeed in business.
Just common sense.
Well, I remember a guy who was a billionaire, right? And he got invited, I forget his name now, but he was an Indian fellow. He got invited to a conference, right? And it was a business school, that business administration, right? And they said, oh, we do business masters administration. We want you to, as a billionaire, to come along and talk to our students. He said, you do know I ain't got a degree to my name, don't you? And I certainly don't, and I don't agree with business master's degrees. They said, no, we want you to come along. So he did. And do you know what he said to the audience? I don't know why you're doing these degrees. If you want to know the best manager, the best business manager, the best budgeting, the best juggling, the best everything you've ever seen, right? If you want to know how to run a business, go and ask your mother, right? That's what he said. Go and ask your mother. Your mother has got all the skills that you need to run a business. Ask your mother, right? And that's what he said. And then they was all looking at each other in the audience saying, what has he just told us? We don't need to do this. It's obvious, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, team leader, timekeeping, multitasking.
Multitasking, budgeting, you name it, your mother does it. So again, what I'm trying to say to people out there, I mean, again, if you want to make Norfolk into the greatest county in England, what would you do as local people? You would only elect people that had the intelligence and common sense and the business skills to make or implement laws that were assisting business, right? And that doesn't mean that you're negative to the workforce. Anyone who's ever been in business knows that the people that help you succeed in that business are the people that your labour force, right? And that's why they're trying to bring in robots. Get the robot. Then we can just go bing, bing, bing. Well, what are they going to do with you? Well, in the end, they'll create a famine because they don't want you. So one way or the other, we need to resolve it. So what I'm saying is, if you avoid the Acts of Union, you'll go back to a distributed governance system in England, right away back to the lowest possible denominator, which is parish councils, district councils, county councils at the highest level. But all of them councils are still bound by the liberties and freedoms of the English Constitution and the common law, right? And the only time you would ever be brought into any form of dispute, maybe, and Parliament needs to intervene, and again, you don't even need long parliaments. In other words, sitting there chatting about, most of the time you shouldn't even need a parliament. If you've got local governance, what do you need a national parliament for? The only time you should need that is if you're building a road from, I don't know, Dover to Newcastle, or you've got some massive, great big pipe that you've built, right at the bottom there, and you want to, and you've got a special 5,000 mile an hour train. It's not that outrageous, right? And you want it to get to Newcastle, and you're there in, I don't know, 20 minutes, right, from Dover to there. And if you need to do that, then you need to say, right, well, this is how we've got to do it. And that's where Parliament would, and again, the individual counties and the people who have been elected along that route would say, right, what's any issues from your local people about this? That's it.
Yeah. So, but like you say, we live in an inverted world, don't we? So, like you say, it should be the people. The people then go to the local councils, say, right, this is what we want. Can you implement it? And then they could take it to the Parliament and say, right, this is what we want. Sort it out. But now it's the other way, isn't it? And it's the Parliament shouting down at all the other smaller
exactly.
people. Yeah.
Well, so technically speaking, get back to Norfolk and Essex. If Norfolk turned around and said there's no income tax in Norfolk, that's it. There is no income tax in Norfolk, right? So then people would say, so how are we gonna pay for services? Well, one way you're going to be, you can raise taxes, right? That's always been the way in England, right? But instead, so we always had some form of local taxation if it was needed, right?
Doesn't that money come from the I can never pronounce the word, from your trust at birth? We all sit on.
So some people, again, I don't think any of that. I mean, I'd have to go right back, but what I am saying to people, so I don't believe that, right? And when they start talking about birth certificates and all sorts of stuff like that, listen, you have to manage populations. We need to know how many people are in the country. Why do you think we've got the problems we've got at the moment? Because there's too many people here. And the infrastructure of this country can't cope with it, right? It's fairly obvious you need to know what your population is, right? And by the way, I believe that the state should be saying to English men and women in this country, get married and have 10 children, right? Because now they're saying we haven't got enough people to do the job, so we've got to import these people that are now destroying the culture of England, right? Well, all of that was by design. You shouldn't be having 1.7 kids, right? I think you need something like 2.4 or above just to sustain your population and sustain your culture. So I'm telling people out there, go and have 10 kids, right? Educate them at home. Don't put them through the state system. There's another old saying, and that saying is, if you send your children to a Roman school, don't be surprised when they come back supporting Caesar, right? And that's the truth. So you put your kid into a state school, they are going to be indoctrinated that the state is your protector, that your state is this, the state is that. And when the state is bad, and it has happened in our past, and it is happening again now, right?
It's happened quite recently, really, when you think about it, if you go back to 2020.
Exactly. And again, we was one of the major groups fighting against all of that. We've got Charlie Staples now in court, and we've won some of that stuff in the High Court. So we've got a big case for torture against the Metropolitan Police, four officers, and it possibly going universal jurisdiction in Texas, because people don't understand that universal jurisdiction, a state will never prosecute itself for torture. Right? And we've got evidence that the British have killed many people. I mean, the British police have killed many English and Welsh people. And since the Criminal Justice Act 1988, Section 134, torture, was brought onto our books via the United Nations Convention Against Torture, which was ratified by the British and many other countries, including America. Part of that means you've got universal jurisdiction. So when you can prove torture, and we can, you can bring that case in the United States of America, and we're bringing a case against King Charles III and 4 police officers in Texas. The first part of the case is being held over here, which is the tort part. And what we're saying is you can't get away with this. They have killed over now in excess of 1,888 people since 1990 in police custody. Most of them during restraint or because of restraint, they have died. That is classed as torture. It's unlawful violence against many people that are not armed, that have not been doing anything bad, etc. And that is the situation. And I'm not talking about contact or or getting hit by a police car. I'm talking about directly people dying in police custody once they've been arrested.
Headlocks and stuff. Get down there and
or putting you in a prone position and you can't breathe and you die. You suffocate, right? That's torture.
No.
And none of them have been charged with it. Most of them have never even been reprimanded, and yet they have got a license to kill you. And that's something that we've got laws on.
They've only got to say those magic words, "We were in fear of our lives."
Yeah, which is all bullshit, and we all know it. So I'll give you an example. Ian Tomlinson, right? The cop. There was a protest. He was selling newspapers. Again, most of these people dying are working class. Just to make sure your audience, if this goes out to people, last year 23 people was killed by the police in England and Wales. I'm not talking about Scotland and Ireland. England and Wales, 23 people. 19 of them were white, working class, right? 19 of the 23. 3 were black, 1 was mixed race, and 1 was Asian. Who's got the biggest percentage of people who are being slaughtered by the state? White people, right? And all I'm saying is, if when it's a black guy, there's riots, there's all this and there's that, they're agitating the community to come out, right? 19 of us got killed last year by the police. What are you going to say about it? Well, the only people saying anything about it is us.
Yeah.
So we're standing up for the working class and the middle classes, because a lot of the middle classes are actually with us, right? But it's this group of people that are controlling us. We've covered a number of subjects.
We have. Wow. But no, you're right. That does seem to be the thing, that even in suicide rates and depression, it seems to be the white middle-aged man suffering the most, penalised the most across all aspects of, you've got being too masculine, you've got, they're trying to feminise blokes. Yeah, blokes have got a bad rap. They really have at the moment.
So you've just hit the nail on the head. And let me just go back to unions again, right? And I'm not talking about working unions, although they're corrupt to the core. The USSR had the highest suicide rates of anywhere in the world. Why is that? Because mentally they was crushed, and the people were just, as some people say, checking out. They couldn't handle it anymore. So what I'm saying to people is, you need to stand up.
Brilliant.
That's it.
Brilliant. Well, there you go, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I've really enjoyed listening to all your knowledge. It's fascinating stuff. It really is. Thank you very much, Graham, for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me on. I know that your audience is a good audience, because some of them come over to my channel and they're realistic in their aims, and that's what we are, very realistic in taking back the country.
Absolutely. Couldn't have put it better myself. Thank you very much. And everyone watching, thank you very much for watching. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you all again soon. Bye for now.